Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Honor the Feminine podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Ledford, and today we have Sabrina Lynn with us, and we are about to have some fun. This is a wild soul that I am excited to play with. So, as you know, we start each episode with an image and story from my travels, because when I was traveling is when I really started to hear my intuition again. She'd gotten muddled in the day-to-day chaos and noise and expectations. And when I was out in the world, I started to hear her whispers again, and we were able to start to commune together. So today, our image is called Goddess. It was taken in Kolkata, India. Oh, Calcutta. Her energy enveloped me in darkness, in shadow, as a deep invitation for me to play in my shadow. She also enveloped me in the love of the Divine Mother. The light and the dark are present within each of us. These were the moments where the different facets of the goddess were revealed to me as facets of myself. It was the external experience enlivening the internal journey through the goddess. I am forever in gratitude to Calcutta for her lessons of shadow and light. And this is the image that reminds me of our guest today, Sabrina Lynn. Sabrina, welcome.
Ooh, what an honor to have her as a representation of our chat together. Thank you.
You're welcome. I was telling Sabrina as we were getting going that I knew which image for her, and then she was elusive to me, and she made me really go after her to find her in my collection. So my love, share yourself.
Which is the nature of the goddess. Sometimes, especially I think when talking about the shadow aspects, can be extraordinarily elusive. So perfect, isn't it?
So perfect. She always is. Even when I am chagrined to say that. So share yourself with us. Tell us about you.
Wow. Where can I start? I have a deep love for the goddess. And I think that's what drew you and I together. And I think it was specifically our first conversations were around that deep love for the dark goddess. And we chatted about the reclaiming of the dark goddess. So I just, I love, again, just back to what you chose today is the goddess in the light and the dark. A little bit about me. I do this work in the world called Rewilding for women. And rewilding is a term that can be used for a lot of different things to describe a lot of different things or different ways of being. But for me, rewilding is practices, both feminine and masculine practices that peel back our layers, that strip our masks back, that bring us into that authentic self, full self, including these aspects of the wild feminine, including these aspects of the dark goddess, including these aspects of our full sexual nature. Yeah, that's a tiny little bit. I don't know how personal you want to get or how deep you want to go, but I'm happy to go anywhere that you would like to go.
Can you speak to us a little about your journey to the work, right? Because we all have this story that gets us, because you're in particular, you're very, watching you show up in the world as you are right now, I can feel how in alignment you are to how you're in service in the world right in this moment. And so what does the journey to that, to now, look like?
Yeah, I would love to share that with your listeners. And I would love to share it because I spent so many years almost with this feeling of waiting to get on my path or waiting to start doing my work in the world or waiting to come into alignment. Little did I know it was just all a training ground and it was all perfect the whole way through. But at the time, it was just this uncomfortable, awkward, like, this isn't me. What is this work I'm doing in the world? This doesn't fit. It's not fulfilling my soul. It's not making my heart sing. And so I'm happy that you asked this question, because I think there are so many women who have the feeling that there's more, right? So I think we've all been there, and we all still have moments of that, of, I know there's more. I know there's more to me, or I know there's more to love, or I know there's more to intimacy, or I know there's more to relationship, or I know there's more to what I'm here to do, to create, to share, or how to serve in the world. So my personal story is, where do I start? It's wild. I was a corporate woman. Shannon, I was a scientist, right? I was left brain, logical. I grew up in a typical American household where it was honored and it was revered and it was celebrated to be doing and achieving and accomplishing and having goals in a very masculine sort of way. This is funny, but this is no joke, I was the captain of the rugby team in college and the president of the microbiology club. That just goes to show you how, yeah, I'm not joking. Like, what a duality that is in the first place, right? But also how much I stood in the masculine, how very much I stood in the masculine, and how much I absolutely denied my feminine, flowing, creative, loving, sensual, sexual side of self. So I was very much that woman. I got a corporate job out of college. I wore gray business suits to work. I was getting shit done. Can I say shit? Sorry if I'm not supposed to.
No,
right?
all things are welcome here. You know that.
Yes. Beautiful. I was getting shit done in the world, or so I thought. And had the life that everybody told me, or that society had told me would make me happy, would be this accomplished life. So I had the big fancy job, I had the house, I had the vacations, I had the boat, the dog, the cars, the white picket fence, the husband, I had everything that life, or that I was told would make me happy. And I was miserable. Shannon, I was absolutely miserable. I was dead. I was empty, but I looked good on paper. And everybody that I knew in my circle at the time said, you should be happy. You have everything. You married your high school, your college sweetheart. You've got this great job. You've got all this money. You've got the vacations. And I was dead. So I chucked it all in. I did what any normal person would do. I got rid of everything but the dog. So literally gave everything away. Got divorced, sold the house, sold the boat, gave up the corporate job, and I went to go live in the woods by myself for 2 years. And that was the start of rewilding. I didn't know it then, that it would be what I facilitate in the world, but that was the start of my journey, was get my butt in nature by myself. I meditated, I ran in the woods, I cried, I touched trees, I climbed trees, I got my hands dirty, I got my whole body dirty and muddy, I rolled in the grass, I healed wild things in my life that, like my asthma and allergies that I had had my whole life, those went away. So really that was the start of my journey when I found, you could say I found the goddess first through nature, first through connecting back in. I was at the time, before I went to the woods, I wasn't even getting my period. So I was training like this wild person. I was training for the US rugby team at the time too. It was just this, I was insane. And so I wouldn't even bleed. But when I went to the woods, I started to bleed with the new moon. So I started to come back into that natural rhythm with the great mother, with the goddess. And everything started to shift and change and open up in me at that point. That was the very start. And then the weird stuff the really weird stuff started happening after that. But the start was going to the woods.
It's so beautiful because my start was, corporate lawyering in Manhattan, kind of job everybody wanted, all this money, totally soul sucking, would have killed me for sure. 100% I'd be dead.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And as I look back now, I took myself up and threw myself into the world. We Fred and I bought an 84 Land Cruiser in Durban, South Africa and drove for 10 months. Right?
Yes.
And so that was our getting out there. And at the time we were reading books and soul searching. And as I look at it now, and I know so many people in my life found that to be, irresponsible and crazy and irrational. But for me, it was soul necessary.
Oh, absolutely.
It was soul necessary.
Absolutely. Yeah. Same. Same.
So
I was on the brink
relate.
of I was on the brink of burnout. The brink of burnout. And I think so many women get to that point or go beyond that point to actually hitting burnout or hitting depression from that standpoint. So yeah.
And so then how do you end up, because I know you're living in Australia right now. I know there's some changes coming, but how did you end up in Australia?
So I ended up in Australia. Well, I was living in the woods, and kind of what started to unfold was some really kind of interesting awakening experiences started happening while I was living in the woods. It was almost as if spirit was seeking me. So I was still in absolute denial of spirit, of spirituality. I just knew that I loved nature. I just knew that I loved trees. I knew that I loved the ground. I just knew that that made me feel the oneness and just feel bliss and love and joy. But what started happening was I would be at a conference. It would literally be a business conference, Shannon. This is how funny it was, this whole unfolding. I would be at a business conference, and I would end up doing a Hawaiian Ho'oponopono ceremony. Or I was at another business conference learning how to podcast, actually. So what you're doing here, I was learning how to podcast, and I ended up in a Native American sweat lodge, having these wildly mystical, big, profound awakenings, experiences, still thinking that I was going to these business meetings. But however, the divine decided to work and to maneuver things around, no, we're going to smash her here. So she's not. So that was all happening. And then I met a guy, I met an Australian, and he lived in Australia. And that's what brought me over to Australia. That was about 7 years ago. Brought me out to Australia. Yep. And then bang, that was when everything, my whole world kind of got flipped upside down, as if it wasn't flipped upside down. Living in the woods was nice. That was this gentle unfolding, gentle kind of awakenings. and then coming to Australia was the whole world. It was like life tsunami, right? Where the whole thing just blows up and you're sort of left in this puddle of goo going, who am I? And what am I here to do?
Well, my love, you moved down under. Of course it flipped you upside down.
You're right. Very good point. Very good point. I should have known.
And so you're in Australia, and when do you start to really share this work to help other women awaken? And have I described it correctly? Because that's what I see you doing.
Yeah. No, sorry. Say that again. It just cut out for 1 second when you said that.
Sure. So I was saying, you're in Australia, and when do you start to share your work to help other women awaken? Because that's what I see you doing, is helping other women awaken to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It started about 2 years ago and started slowly just teaching meditation and then evolved into working heavily, or not heavily, I would say deeply and very intimately with the goddess. And some of the, I would say, for lack of a better way of explaining it, some of the more potent goddesses. So the goddesses of big mama transformation, the goddesses of Kundalini awakening, the goddesses of sacred sexuality that link our sexuality with the divine, with the sacred. So that happened when Rewilding was formed, which was about a year and a half ago, is when Rewilding came about. So started off with gentle meditations, and then we just plunged into the depths, like, all right, I need to go deep here. There is so much more. And that's kind of, it's just kind of a testament probably to, I don't know, I think to how I'm wired in a way, is it's go big or go home. If you're going to come to a Rewilding workshop, you need to expect massive transformation, massive awakening, massive opening. It's not this gentle, slow, soft, easy. I mean, it's called Rewilding, for crying out loud, right? It's the big stuff.
And so when you're talking about like the big goddesses, are you talking about Kali? Who are you talking about? Can we speak them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Kali comes into, well, I should say one of the dark goddesses will come into every single workshop that I do, plays heavily in the retreats that I do. And Kali is absolutely one of the goddesses that represents the face of the dark goddess. Other dark goddesses are Medusa, Hecate. So some of these really potent, oftentimes hidden parts of self. So you know this, but maybe some of your listeners, when we talk about goddess, right? Goddess is this powerful archetypal energy that also links to a certain thread of Shakti within us. And so that's what Rewilding is. It's literally, let's open up this door to this particular energy channel of, let's say, the one that's related to Kali. And then what's going on there? Is that channel even open? Which in most cases, it's not open for most women. And that's why we haven't accessed any of our juice. You know, we're living these lives of kind of alive, but barely alive, barely awake to our actual potency, our juice. And all of that leads to what we kind of chatted about, is coming into alignment with our passion and our purpose. Because before we open these channels, there is no way that we're going to come into our fullness and into full alignment with our passions, with our purpose, with our soul gifts. Our soul gifts are oftentimes hidden under that rubble. So Hecate, for instance, she's the big mama medicine woman. Now, in order to access the gifts of big mama medicine woman, which, by the way, we all have, everybody has Hecate gifts. Everybody has medicine woman gifts. Some of them are hands-on healing. Some of them are intuition. I mean, we all have intuition, but some of them are like the gift of sight, the gift of those deep knowings, that wisdom. I know what I know. I don't know how I know what I know, but I know it. Midwifery is Hecate. Plant medicine, just knowing what herbs do what for the body. And so that's Hecate. And we've all got these soul gifts, but oftentimes on top of this thread of Shakti, right? This line that we've got in us of light and love and juice, it's locked down, or it's got some rubble on it. It's got some like kinks in the line or some distortions in it. And that can be from this lifetime, when maybe we were little girls and we were told to shut our intuition down, right? How many of us were little girls and we could traverse the worlds, right? I remember talking to, my mom had twins that she lost before they were born. And I remember having a conversation with these two little souls and going and talking to the family about it. Like, hey, I just talked to Mary and Marie. And they're like, don't talk about that ever again. Right? Like, and you're like, oh, okay, that was bad. So how many of us have had those experiences or having to hide this connection, hide our ability to traverse the other world out of fear, out of us being ostracized?
I feel like I'm just in my early 40s starting to like come out of that magic closet and share more of my gifts in this way. Yeah. And really, to me, what you're talking about is a couple of things. It's all so beautiful, but what you're really doing is an activation and a remembering, because it's all within us. We've got it all. It's actually our divine right to it. So, and so none of us is special in that we can tap into it. The way in which we tap into it is often unique to each other, is the way I feel about it. Yeah. And so like, there's all of this stuff. It's like, it's your divine right to tap into all this. It's all within you. Activation, remembering, the way you uniquely do it. And so
absolutely.
Do you know who's coming to an event? Like, do you know if it's Hecate or Kali or Medusa, or does she come in as you arrive? I'm just curious.
That is a brilliant question. So I use astrology a lot as well. Uh-huh. So you can see, if you look, let's say I have an event in a week. So I'll look at what is the astrology on that day at the time the event starts. So there are asteroids that are associated with Kali, with Hecate, with Medusa, and then the masculine archetypes with Shiva, with Mars, with Eros. So you can see energetically because what's happening out there is what's happening in here. So you can see and feel into what doors are open, what energies are big, bold, right? What's easy to access. We can access all of these at any time, of course. But if you work with the cosmos, instead of trying to fight or battle against it, right? We just flow with it. So that's a part of how events come about, is just this, okay, what's happening astrologically? Yep, Kali is roaring, right? The door is fully open and she's going to come in regardless if we consciously work with her or not. That energy is there and it's loud and it's strong. So a part of it is I have a feel for what's in store. But the other thing is it will change moment to moment to moment. So as you know, with the feminine, the moment that I plan this workshop or I hold this workshop out, no one has booked in yet. The circle's not formed. Yeah. Now, 2 weeks later or whatever, let's say the event is now fully booked. Now there's a very different energy that's happened because that circle is formed. So now you tune into that energy and it's, this is what we're co-creating together. So my biggest job, Shannon, is literally to feel, to honor the energy, both the energy of the circle and the energy of the goddess, of the feminine and the masculine, right? So honoring both in workshop space and trusting exactly where we're being led. So I don't go in with a Sabrina plan because a Sabrina plan is insanely limited to Sabrina's little mind. And even if I was tapping into the energy a week before the event, there's now 7 days of things that have happened and changed and shifted and transformed. So when I tapped in 7 days ago, it is very different energy from the day that we start that workshop. Yeah. And so you'll see that I never say which goddesses that we work with. I will never tell you which goddesses we work with because I can't. And if I did, I would be limiting our potential of what we can do, what we can open to, what we can activate, what we can heal, what we can release in a workshop. So I literally get to the workshop and I kind of have a rough idea, but we never really know where we're going. Because if we did, I wouldn't be following her flow, following the flow of the circle, following what unfolds next. So our first practice could go bang and open everybody. And it's this massive activation, right? We could have Kundalini awakenings for like half of the room. And then it's to follow that and to go, okay, what's in everybody's highest good in this next moment? And then to trust. It's an absolute surrender, Shannon. It's a surrender to every moment, to not needing a plan, not needing to control the outcome, not needing to know what's coming next. It's that absolute surrender and trust and follow her. Oh. And that's where the magic's at. That's where the magic lies, is that.
We're taking this sacred pause so I can share with you that Ava Aldinolfi and I are offering 11 days of devotion to divine union, a video series with some amazing guests. We find that we spend so much time looking outside of ourselves for love and happiness. 11 days of devotion to divine union calls us to look within ourselves for all that we seek. The amazing Sabrina joined us for this video series, along with 10 other amazing guests. We begin September 18th. You can sign up for free over at rememberingdivineunion.com. Now back to the show. And you're tapping into so much of what's up for me right now. The surrender and trust has been so many beautiful opportunities and lessons, in particular since the beginning of the year, around surrender and trust for me. And what I hear you saying is that circle is the container. And so there is a structure. She's not just flowing into a puddle on the floor.
So that's the Shiva. So if you feel into the Shiva Shakti or the masculine feminine, the masculine is the container, is that safe container, is the structure. So there is a structure. We are together from 9 until 4. There is a container. This is my temple. We are in the temple. So that's our container. We are in circle. This circle of women is who we're going to journey with. That's our container. That's what holds us. That's the structure. That's Shiva. That holds the space for the divine unfolding that changes moment to moment to moment to moment to moment to moment.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, you just nailed it.
You have to have both.
Yes, you do. You do. Otherwise, nothing would be I couldn't create anything. So these are principles of manifestation that we're talking about here too, is to have both and to honor both and to trust both. And this is part of the reason why we do a lot of work in rewilding with the union of the masculine and feminine. Because the more those are dancing in that beautiful dance within us, and they're healthy and they're both open and they're both able to dance and move and flow together, that's how we make things happen in the world. That's where manifesting comes from. So it's not just
these. Power is, people.
Yes. It is. And then we're creating in the world, right? And then what we're creating in the world is heart aligned. It's soul aligned, because we're open to the feminine. We're feeling what is in my deepest heart's desire. We're tapped into her creativity, her juice, her life force, her passion. And then we have this masculine structure, form, doing, right? Making things happen. Decisions get happen. Movement from point A to point B in very concise, very focused. So it's taking that fullness of the goddess, that absolute raw life force energy, and focusing it into, this is what we're going to create. And that's part of full empowerment. That's part of the potential that we all have. And like you said, this isn't special to anybody. We all have it. We all have the fullness of the masculine, the fullness of the feminine. And that's it. That's what working with these different archetypal energies, these both masculine and feminine archetypal energies, is to open up to our fullness and to get everything dancing in this beautiful, joyful, blissful union that brings us into alignment, allows us to create, and allows us to love like we've never experienced before in our lives. I get a little bit passionate about that.
I love it, because it's definitely where I'm playing, what I'm living into, the path that I'm on. And so, like, I love to talk about it. Like it enlivens me, and it enlivens, and every time I do it, it enlivens like a little different part, because a little different angle of approach depending on who you're talking to. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So, speak to us about how you honor the feminine and stay in touch with your intuition. Do you have some daily practices that you tap into?
I have a lot of daily practices. And to be honest, Shannon, it's almost like now I live this.
Yep.
Right. And so it's not even necessarily that I set aside time for daily practice. It's that I live it. I breathe it. And it's a constant checking in, a constant feeling deeper to her. But practices, I can share practices that I share with all of the rewilding women. Nature, we talked about that, right? Just being out, even if it's with just a tree, go and breathe with the tree. Get barefoot, get your clothes off and lie naked on the ground. Just be with her. That's a huge movement, breath, sound. Get in your body, right? The feminine is life force. The feminine is the embodiment. The feminine is the lower chakras, for God's sakes. Open up this first, second, third chakra. There is beautiful, magnificent juice, right? The feminine comes from the earth up. Draw her up. Breathe her up. Breathe her up, right? If you think about the kundalini, the coiled serpent in the bases, breathe there. Open, let the body move, let the body dance, let the sound move her, breathe her, open her, breathe her up, right? That's all of these practices. Being around other women. This is the simplest thing that we can do, is if there is a woman who is open and you are next to that woman who is open, you can feel it. It automatically opens doors in you. Once one woman has gone through the door, it makes it that much easier for the next woman to go through the door. So even things like listening to your podcast here, this is it. And while you're listening to it, get out of your head. Like right now, even while we're talking, is to just open that first, second, third, fourth, fifth chakra, open the body, right? Like to put your shoulders back, to breathe your chest open, to uncross your freaking legs. We hold our bellies in, we cross our legs. We're so locked up. Open, right? Like open, dance, move, breathe, feel someone's energy and what's going through you. Like our group, the Rewilding group on Facebook, that's a place where women can just connect with other women who are also opening. So that's a huge one, is just be in space where women are honoring the feminine, where men, being in a space with a man who honors the feminine, or a man who's open to his Shakti, to his feminine, is incredibly powerful. But just being in spaces where the feminine is honored shifts you immediately.
I don't know what I did a few years ago before. Like, I didn't know that, like, sisterhood and really being in these spaces with, like, amazing women who've become soul sisters and they continue to come into my life. Like, what the hell was I doing? I didn't know I was missing it, and I don't know what I would do without it now. Like, what the hell was I doing?
Yeah. I remember the first, like, proper wild woman's retreat that I went on, and this was years ago. And I remember we're out in nature in the middle of nowhere. It's the Australia out in the desert. And I remember the women were all like far ahead of me. And we're all in like silent meditations. We're walking and just breathing the earth and breathing nature and opening. And you're in this absolute altered state of consciousness, just in love with everything, in love with yourself, in love with the world. And I remember walking up, and it was like this canyon that I was in. It just opened. And the women, there was this swimming hole or this pool of water. It wasn't a proper swimming hole, and all of the women I was on this retreat with were just naked in the sun. One woman was braiding another woman's hair. Two were in the water splashing around. Two others were off like meditating. together. And I just walked up and I went, oh my God, this is what women do. This is what we do, right? We commune, we chat, we create things together, we braid each other's hair, we just be. And that's what the moment I saw that was, I know that I will create space like this in the world. I know, because there's a part in us that's like, where's my tribe? I know there's a better way of being with women. I know that we're missing something. We used to raise our babies together, right? You couldn't produce milk to feed your child. I would take your baby and I would put it to my breast and I would feed your baby. This is what we did together, right? We're missing that in our society. We live in these little houses, secluded, pulled away. We have no tribe. And so, yes to this way of being with women, this powerful, sacred, profound way. We used to go away together and bleed together. We had elders who would show us, here's what bleeding is about. Here's the power that comes with bleeding. Here's the power that comes with being a woman. Here's the power that comes with your sexuality as a woman. We don't have that. What the hell is it? But it's coming back. It's coming back.
That's the best part, is that it is.
The wisdom is coming back, right? We're not being persecuted for it. It had to go underground because there was a time when we were being persecuted for it. Yeah. Literally, the witch burnings. We were being persecuted for honoring the feminine. But it's changed, at least for us in the Western world. And we've got this big opportunity to open to the wisdom, to come back into this way of being.
Yeah. It also feels like from the persecution that there's this other part around that we signed contracts, soul contracts with each other to keep each other small, to keep each other safe.
Yeah.
And that, part of the activation is around you can be big now, and the permission around that, and like breaking up those soul contracts, to be honest.
This is one of the biggest wounds that we go through. And we talked about the dark goddess a little bit before, and that shadow. So even today's episode being the shadow and the light, it's held in the shadow. That stuff, that playing it small in order to stay safe, it's held in the dark goddess. It's held in the shadow. But once we start to go into those spaces and that lifts that rubble, right? So that's part of the rubble. That rubble, we de-rubble that line. And suddenly I'm safe to be seen in the world. I'm actually safe to come out of the closet with my soul gifts. I'm not going to be persecuted or ostracized for this. Yeah. But it's held so deeply in our subconscious, our shadow, it's buried. We have no idea that this is limiting us from stepping into the fullness of self, from stepping into our soul purpose or our soul gifts or our witchy gifts, our more esoteric out there gifts or knowings or wisdom. It doesn't even have to be gifts per se, but what we know. And so once we heal, clear, release that rubble in those lines, bang, the whole world changes for a woman.
Okay. On that note, oh girl, I could go all day with you. We could go for 24 hours. We could marathon this. We would have so much fun. Are you ready for the random questions?
Yes, I'm ready for the random questions.
Okay. So if you could sit down with any woman, alive or dead, for a chat and tea, who would it be?
Maya Angelou.
Ah, beautiful.
I would love to sit down with Maya Angelou. That's the first woman who popped into my mind. Yep. Her.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, she had some rewilding energy.
Yeah, what she did for the time that she lived in is a profound, absolutely profound. I would love to chat with her.
Yeah, talk about
it makes me want to cry. Yeah,
clearing some collective rubble.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yes.
And And the second question is, where would you most like to travel?
South of France. Mary Magdalene. The Mary Magdalene line. Yeah. That's really strong for me at the moment.
Yeah. Gorgeous.
Is that line and just that energy that's held there in the south of France. Yeah.
I love it. So my love, how do we reach out and connect with you and get more Sabrina in our lives?
The easiest place, Shannon, is rewildingforwomen.com. That's the easiest place, is our website. And I do want to share with women who've listened to this, especially about the tribe and about connecting in to other women who are doing this work, or connecting in with more conversations that I share. Our Facebook page, it's free and it's open to every woman. It's private, so you do have to request to be a member, but that's definitely a place for any woman who resonated with our chat today can come and get more conversations and just more of this energy of opening, the activations, the remembering, the reclaiming. And that's, if you go to our website again, you'll see a little tab that says free FB group right at the top of our website. And that's it.
And it's a dynamic, beautiful group. I mean, I love being in there, and you're doing such a beautiful service there. So yeah. And we will put all of that on the show notes for this episode over at honorthefeminine.com so people can very easily click and find you.
Beautiful. Shannon, it was such a pleasure doing this with you. Oh, I loved every moment of it.
I did too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello again, everyone. I love being with Sabrina. Every time I'm with her, I feel like I get activated. She has so much wisdom flowing through her, and it enlivens me. I also love her Facebook group, Rewilding for Women. It's a group of really dynamic women, and she goes live and really shares herself there. You can connect with Sabrina and all of the links over at honorthefeminine.com in the show notes for this episode. As I spoke into, we are offering 11 days of devotion to divine union, which begins September 18th. It's a video series where we drop in with our guests around divine union, including Sabrina. To sign up for free, you can go over to rememberingdivineunion.com. If you would like to drop into the community and the sacred space for the listeners to the Honor the Feminine podcast, we're on Facebook at Honor the Feminine Daily. It's a place where we feel into how we honor the feminine and stay in touch with our intuition moment to moment, day to day. And I'd love to have you join in the magic there. Finally, if you loved this episode, please share it with a friend. That's how I find all my favorite podcasts. And please subscribe. We have a lot of amazing guests coming up, and I wouldn't want you to miss any of that. All right, have a magical day.